What's up, everybody? Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. What's up, everyone? It's Thomas with Real Broker here in St. Augustine, Florida, and I'm joined by Justin Augustine, my videographer, and also my partner when it comes down to all things real estate. He's the Living in Jacksonville channel.
Yeah.
How you doing today, Justin?
Good. I'm glad to be here in my own house.
Yeah. You know, we're actually setting it up so that we can get a podcast, studio set up in my house, but we're waiting on the chair to get delivered. One of them out of two got delivered somehow.
So we're almost ready to finish up his podcast studio setup in his brand new house that he just bought. If you haven't checked out his recent vlog videos, I think he just posted the most recent one about closing. He just bought a house in St. Augustine and West Augustine, actually, to be specific. And he's moved in, and we've kind of built a studio for him, and it looks really cool. And we're excited to get in there next time. This, unfortunately, we are kind of winging it here in the dining room of my house. So
yeah, but it looks great. I mean, let's be honest. You have a cute house. You have a very awesome house here in Jacksonville. So
which is the premise of the day, right? St. Augustine, Jacksonville.
100%. Yeah. So that's what we wanted to do for you guys out there, is really just kind of give you a good look at I live in St. Augustine. I love living there. Justin lives in Jacksonville with his wife and his kid, and they love living here, So we just wanted to give, exactly our insights of why we like it, why we don't like it, why we chose St. Augustine over Jacksonville, Jacksonville over St. Augustine.
Sure. Yeah. And real quickly, I will just, I guess we'll preface this for each of us, how we came to live where we live now. I guess I'll start it off with, I was born and raised in Jacksonville. I grew up here. Born here out in Orange Park, grew up over on the west side of Jacksonville. I moved away out of the country when I was 21 years old for about 7 years, but I came back, and this is always home. So I know Jacksonville. I've seen the developments over the years, and I'm still here. So
yeah, and the 7 years away, he was modeling in Thailand. I always got to bring that up because he's obviously a handsome man,
God.
So he's good behind the camera and in front of the camera. He's got it all covered, But yeah, I moved to St. Augustine in 1998. I moved from New York. I lived between New York, New Jersey, Brooklyn, Staten Island, Lake Opakon in New Jersey. Then moved to St. Augustine. My parents got divorced. Lived there for 7 years, and then I bounced around a good bit. Came back in 2019. At the end of 2019, got my real estate license in March 2020. The best time to get your license,
Yeah. I mean, that was a hot market then, right?
Yeah, things definitely didn't happen at all for like 3-4 months. Nothing was going on, So that was great. And the world totally changed, So I think one of the things we're going to talk about today, especially, is how different both the areas are, between 2019 and 2023, because it's drastically changed over these past couple of years.
Oh, 100%. And I think we'll kind of make it into a little battle here, because obviously I'm repping Duval County, Jacksonville, Florida, baby. Duval. Yeah, we'll insert that into the audio later.
Yeah.
I personally choose to live, obviously, born and raised here. That's why I'm here. But I choose to still live in Jacksonville pretty much because, I do like it better than St. Augustine in many ways, and I'll kind of point that out, and then I'm sure Thomas here feels the same way about St. Augustine versus Jacksonville, so we'll kind of get into it. But I guess I'll start it off with why I like Jacksonville over St. Augustine. It's always because I think now more so than ever is just because, one, families here, that's a given, right? It's more easy access to people who you care about, but as a city itself, Jacksonville, it really has a bigger city feel than a place like St. Augustine, right? St. Augustine is that smaller town, historic city type vibe, where Jacksonville is just like this big, huge city with a ton of people living there. And I kind of like that aspect a little bit more than living in St. Augustine. I mean, I haven't lived there, but just visiting St. Augustine, you can feel the vibes between the two cities. And I think Jacksonville is more my fit in that regards, at least.
Yeah, and I moved from, I lived in New York City for a good bit of time, and that's in what I would say a real, metropolitan city, whereas Jacksonville is just on its way to becoming a metropolitan city. So it's like, if I'm going to live in the city, I'm going to be living in Brooklyn, I'm going to be living in, New York City, because that's the best city in the entire world. So when you're thinking about moving down here, right, I feel like if you're moving to Florida, you're not looking for that same type of vibe, right? You don't want that hustle and bustle of the city,
True.
Which is what Jacksonville provides, right? And I think, obviously people can move wherever they want, but a younger, hungrier person would maybe more gravitate towards Jacksonville, whereas St. Augustine is kind of a slower pace, right? It's someone who's seen it, done it, and they're like, you know what, I'm not looking for that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. There are two different cities in that regard. And another thing about Jacksonville that I do like is I just feel like there's more space. I feel like St. Augustine is just so I mean, city-wise, St. Johns County, it's, St. Augustine is part of St. Johns County, and St. Johns County is pretty big, but as far as St. Augustine goes, it's like, you're down US 1, a few miles, and that's it. That's all you got. That's St. Augustine right there,
Yeah, and that's, on the verse side, Jacksonville is the largest city by landmass in the United States. So it's a huge, huge city. And if you're talking about driving around 295, it's going to take you about an hour and a half without traffic, right? So that's like a good chunk of change to drive north and south. I mean, what is it, like 30 miles from the southern point to the northern point? It's
I will
huge.
say it sucks driving everywhere in Jacksonville. I always say it takes at least 35 minutes to go down the street in Jacksonville because everything is just so far away. It's such a big city land-wise. But honestly, I feel the same way about St. Augustine. I feel like the traffic is worse than Jacksonville, if I have to be honest.
I wouldn't say all that. I mean, the one thing to St. Augustine's negative is that Jacksonville has so many great little neighborhoods, right? Like Avondale, Riverside, Jacks Beach, Springfield's coming up now, San Marco, all these great little pockets within the huge metropolitan of Jacksonville, whereas, St. Johns County really only has downtown St. Augustine. West Augustine, where I moved, is starting to pop a little bit, which is really cool. But in terms of like where you hang out, where you go to do things, Jacksonville, I will say, has a little bit more options than St. Augustine, especially when it comes down to the neighborhood vibes.
Sure. I agree with that. And one thing I can say great about St. Augustine that I think it has an advantage over Jacksonville in regards to is the food scene. I think the food scene in St. Augustine, Jacksonville doesn't even come close, honestly.
Yeah.
Despite the population and the number of different restaurants that Jacksonville has, I think just St. Augustine has the quality, and it's just so much better. Why do you think that is?
Well, maybe it's because the dollar amount, you got to be a little bit wealthier to live in St. Johns County anymore these days.
It's true. That's how they look. He's looking down on me. He's saying I'm too poor over here in Duval County.
No. Not at all. It's way more affordable. That's the way you say it, right?
There you go.
Way more affordable in Duval. But also, like you said, you can go to Avondale and you can go to Josephine's that we went to in Avondale with our wives, and it was a beautiful Italian restaurant, great spot to go. But I only think they only have like 2 restaurants there that you'd really like, all right, let's travel and go there. And it's like, in reality, if you're living in Jacksonville, you got to travel to go. It's at least 20 minutes to go to a good restaurant.
It's a trek,
So that's whereas if you're in St. Augustine and living close to St. Augustine, you're going one direction, you can find 10 different restaurants that are amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. Could you ever see yourself living in Jacksonville? Like if you not if you had to necessarily, but like could you see yourself living somewhere in Jacksonville?
Yeah, and we were looking in Avondale because we went to Josephine's, and Avondale reminded us of up north, very much so, where there's a main street, there's shops, there's restaurants, there's things to do. There's a whole bunch of tiny little parks, a big park in between all of it, and Avondale is like the cutest little neighborhood just off of like Riverside up there in Jacksonville. And before we just bought this house, so we were looking just recently, we were like heavily considering moving to Avondale. And of course, we'd be closer to you guys up here. Well, I don't know, maybe not even that, because it's so far.
It's still going to be a 35-minute drive to get from my house to yours regardless, right?
Yeah, for sure. So it was like, we ended up like, okay, well, we run a business here in St. Augustine primarily, and it's like, were we going to do that 50-minute drive every single day?
Frauds, no.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and then we're just completely lying to people living in St. Augustine while we're up in Avondale. But same question to you. Like, is there a spot in St. Augustine that you could see, like?
I definitely could live in somewhere in St. Johns County, absolutely. If I'm going to be close to downtown St. Augustine, I think the place I'd pick is either like West Augustine, kind of like where you just bought. Mm-hmm. I think it's a great up-and-coming spot and a good place to get a good deal on a house there, because I just see nothing but good things in the progress of the development of that particular area. But St. Augustine South is so cool. It's so like no HOA, but everyone keeps their properties pristine, and it just feels like a good old school type, community vibe at St. Augustine South, right off the Intracoastal there. I love St. Augustine South. If I'm going to live outside of St. Augustine City, I'd probably hit up, somewhere around 210. I love like what they're developing out there, and, Shearwater, Silverleaf, Rivertown out there even. I like that vibe. I probably wouldn't live in like a Nocatee. It's a little bit too We'll skip to the next one. I don't want to comment on it. For people that like Nocti. Actually, my buddy just bought Nocti, so don't watch this, Chris.
Yeah, don't knock Nocti, bro. You know,
it's the number one.
It's the number one spot to live in the entire state of Florida. Catch the video. But in all seriousness, though, right, you have a young family, right? Like you have Nuggie, who's a little baby, right? Or toddler. My mistake. A toddler now, and the appeal of like a Nocatee, a Shearwater, Rivertown, those major communities, and even in Jacksonville, you know, now you have like E-Town, Seven Pines, like all those big communities, is that it's almost like a little bubble, you know, and everything's right there for you. So it's like when you're running around doing your work everywhere, and it's like, well, okay, well, your school's right here in town, it's 5 minutes away. Right in Nocatee, it's 5 minutes away. Your church is right here in Nocatee.
Yeah.
You know, your hospital, everything is right there for you to just go and do it. And then your kids, you're like, hey, go hop on the golf cart and drive around for the 26 square miles, and I don't got to worry about you.
Well, let me pick your brain here for a little bit, because I think that's quite an interesting phenomenon, like these master plan communities that are popping up all in St. Johns County that are super developing out there off of 210 and the Nocatees, the Shearwaters, the Silverleafs, the Rivertowns. Why do you think there's such a demand for the development of these communities out there outside of St. Augustine City into like the more rural part of St. Johns County?
Yeah, and I know we're going to talk about pricing here, but a lot of the pricing in northern St. Johns County is much more expensive than when you're looking in the southern part of St. Johns County. And I think that has to do with proximity to Jacksonville. The major employers in St. Johns County is the government, you know, so they're not paying the best, let's be honest, you know. And in Jacksonville, with it being such a big area, you also have the naval bases there and everything. There's a lot more employers there, you know, so being in the northern part of St. Johns County, just south of the Duval County line, gives you kind of the best of both worlds, right? So you can go north to Jacksonville if you need to. You can go downtown to St. Augustine if you want to have a little old city fun, you know. So you're right in the middle, and especially with all these master plan communities, with all the amenities that they have, a lot of times you don't even got to leave, you know.
Yeah.
Like our buddy Kane just moved over to Shearwater, and he loves it over there.
I heard him. He was telling me all about it.
Yeah.
He's like, this is like the perfect place. I don't have to go anywhere.
every week he's like, hey, you want to come hang out in the pool? I'm like, dude, I got stuff to do. Like, you know, he's like, I'll be in there, man. Just let me know. It's like, I'll take calls from the pool. I'm like, all right, whatever, you know.
They are very nice. And I think, I guess if I'm going to throw my 2 cents in, I think, absolutely. There's a lot of people coming from Jacksonville to move down there because, you know, these are, at the end of the day, it's new construction, right? Mm-hmm. All of these developments are practically, I mean, Noxie's been around for a little bit now, and some of these other master plan communities down there have, but it's generally new construction homes, right? There's not a huge new construction market in Jacksonville because it's so pre-existing already. It's like, it's such a big city too. So if like the more outward they build, it's the further distance you'll have to travel just to get into work, even if you commuted, right? So the amount of space to build new construction in Jacksonville, I feel, is a lot more limited than St. Johns County. It's like an oil pipeline ready to be tapped, right? It's just like gold down there. Yeah. And I think that's what they're doing. They're kind of like tapping into the potential development and how, like you said, people moving from Jacksonville and more outer areas, people who maybe don't want to like live in St. Augustine City anymore. They want to be more rural. And I want to say rural because like they're their own bubbles. They have all of their own amenities, their own Publixes. Like they got Publix, right? When you get a Publix, you know you've made it, right?
You're good. Yeah, you're good. You don't got to worry about anything. You know you're in a good place if you got a Publix right around the corner.
Oh, for sure. That's how you know you need to buy in that area.
Yeah. It's like a Publix and a Starbucks, a Chick-fil-A. It's over.
You get in there when they first build that Publix and you buy a house, man, you're good forever. Dude.
Prices are going up.
Always.
You don't have a choice. Yeah.
Speaking of prices, let's get into like the difference in prices between, St. Johns County and Jacksonville and Duval here.
Yeah, it's a big one too. It's a big difference.
It's significant, and maybe we can speculate on why we think that is. And just to throw it out there, I think the median sales price over just the past year. We don't want to bring in too many years back from the past because past 3-4 years has been kind of crazy with the market. It's been unpredictable, and it's been something that's been unprecedented. But over the past year, I think Jacksonville, we're at a $305,000 median sales price here in Duval County. And what's that looking like over there in St. Johns County?
Well, I want to say that's like, if you look at the national median sale price, like Jacksonville's still under that, that's a pretty amazing thing, especially in a growing metropolitan city. So like if you're, if we're giving points out, that's definitely a point.
We'll take it.
For Jacksonville. Yeah, you need all the points you can get. But St. Johns County, the median sale price is $525,000. So, and why is that? There's a lot of factors that go into that. I think the proximity to Jacksonville actually helps that out a lot, because a lot of the northern part of St. Johns County is being developed, and it's all brand new. Everything's brand new. You're talking about the houses, the schools, the churches, the commercial space. Everything is brand new. And even the commercial space, their vacancies, there's no vacancies. They're getting filled immediately. It's pretty crazy.
Do you think there's a more... this is complete speculation, but let's just kind of brainstorm here and throw it out there. Do you think there's more, because obviously, snowbirds is a term, right, where people from the north or some other state that's a little bit northern, more north of Florida, they come retire down here, or they move down here to Florida because of the climate, because they're retiring, better cost of living, et cetera, et cetera. And we've seen that historically, that you have states like Washington State, New York State, California State moving to Florida on a consistent basis. And do you think they're moving now, at least nowadays, do you think they're moving more towards Jacksonville, or you think they're coming, those out-of-towners, those out-of-staters, do you think they're moving towards St. Johns County more at a higher rate?
Well, I think it really depends on who that is, right? So if they're in the workforce, they're probably going towards Jacksonville, just because the availability of jobs, right? Now, if it's a family, they're going to Nocte. It's the number one place, man. Come on,
number one, baby.
Yeah, number one. When they lose that, they're going to be so upset.
I know. They're going to be number two, just like Pizza Time, and they're like, oh, number two.
Yeah,
I don't know. Pizza Time does really good for number two.
It's still great pizza, yeah. Regardless, they won it in 2015, but it's still got great pizza.
Yeah.
So they still advertise it, too, like it was yesterday, which is funny.
True.
But historically, people consider Florida, just in general, to be a retirement state, right?
Yeah.
And, over the past 4 years that we've seen prices go up, like a rocket ship in this area. What was the median sale price, prior to 2020, in Jacksonville?
I mean, it was probably like, we were in the twos. We were like 220, 215.
Exactly. Yeah. Which is pretty staggering, when you're looking at it today, and people consider it to be unaffordable. Right. But then if you're moving from those markets that you listed, like New York City, Washington, D.C., Chicago, what was the other one? California. It wasn't a city, but a state. All these places where property values are a lot more. Typically, the pay is also a lot more as well. So they're more or less, if they're retiring, they're selling off assets. They're moving down here. They could buy 4 houses if they wanted to, especially prior to 2020. Yeah. But now things, I think, are kind of evening out almost in that level playing field for St. Johns County, whereas Jacksonville is definitely more of a deal, where St. Johns County is, it's almost on the same cost of what a house is here versus a house in, New York or New Jersey.
Yeah.
And you don't get a basement,
Oh, so that lost square footage, man.
Seriously.
Darn you, Florida Aquifer. We resent you for not letting us build basements down here.
Dang water table. You can only dig like a foot down, and you get if you want an in-ground pool, you're good.
And you bring that up, and that actually probably is another reason why I choose to stay living in Jacksonville, is because of the prices. I just feel like it's a little bit more affordable. Some areas, right? Jacksonville's so big, you can say Jacksonville is, as a whole, more affordable, but it really depends where you live, right? If you're living in like Lincolnville, right, down in downtown St. Augustine, the prices there are going to be way higher than West Augustine, which is just a couple miles. I mean, can't be more than 10 miles down the road. So
and to the point of pricing in Jacksonville, right? It's not like Jacksonville's super cheap, right? You go to all the neighborhoods we just listed, Jack's Beach. I mean, you're looking at $1 million pricing for something pretty basic. It's nothing like. But that's the bonus of Jacksonville, it being such a big place. You guys already have so much housing inventory, whereas we're all just developing housing inventory here in St. Johns County, where you guys have had stuff for years and years and years. It's already been kind of developed. So in a way, it's like a lagging indicator almost, because you have all these homes that are older that need a whole bunch of work that are scattered across, the suburbs of Jacksonville, not in the ideal places, right? That are just going to bring down that pricing. But in reality, I mean, there's a lot of expensive places in Jacksonville too.
Yeah, definitely, for sure, 100%. And I think, I guess we'll segue into how long are homes staying on the market before they sell. I think Jacksonville, we're at like something around median days on market around 36 days, I think.
Yeah,
so
I think it's 36, and Alex from the Market Distillery, I think the last report he put out was 32 days for the entire Northeastern Florida Association of Realtors. St. Johns County, it's a little bit more. It's 46 days. So
now, do you think that's because the median price point is higher as well, or you think people because the buy box, or what do you think? You think there's a difference? Why do you think there's a difference so much in a 10-day difference?
Well, it's funny. It's like the 10-day difference. It's really not
that much, right?
Yeah. But
it's there.
It's definitely there. Affordability definitely comes into it because we're in a higher interest rate environment than we were in the past 2 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that affects both markets equally, I'd say. St. Johns County, I imagine, would probably be less affected by that because so many people moving there. I would say probably an older person, and they're buying more likely, either with cash or they're not really too worried about the interest
You're
rate.
retiring more than likely, at least coming down and, filling it out before they decide they're going to stay there, right?
Yeah, and it's like in Jacksonville, you have a lot of first-time home buyers out there because of the affordability that Jacksonville allows up there.
Yes.
So I think Quentin said it was like 35% of home buyers last month were all first-time home buyers up in Jacks. Yeah,
that's crazy. And
that's probably only going to get bigger, right?
Yeah.
Because it's our generation buying homes to grow with their familial size,
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think it's pretty interesting. I'd say it's more a market-driven thing opposed to like a demand, like as in the interest rates are driving that demand slightly lower because it's just kicking people off the fence. If you were on the fence with your interest rate before, as it keeps going up, you're just going to go on the other side and be like, yeah, I'm not playing this game.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Nah, I totally agree with you. I think everything you said is pretty spot on, especially since the statistic that Quentin mentioned this morning. I wasn't there for that conversation, but now that you're telling me, that makes a lot of sense, and it makes perfect sense. That's crazy. 36%.
Yeah.
Our first time home buyers. That's man, I better start making some videos on, FHA and VA loans, especially because the military bases here, we got so many first time home buyers that don't tap into their VA benefits. I mean, whew.
Yeah, and that's something. If you want to talk about that a little bit more, is like St. Johns County doesn't really have that. We have Northrop Grumman, which they make plans for the military, but it's not necessarily like directly affiliated with the military. Where there's two bases in Jacksonville that really, even during the pandemic, the housing crisis, financial crisis back in 2008, really held the market pretty steady in Jacksonville comparatively because you have people that got to buy, got to sell because of being in the military.
Sure, yeah. And I think that's one thing that Jacksonville definitely takes advantage of is the military population here in the city. We have so many bases. If they're not in Duval County, they're very close by. That just really supports and helps our local economy kind of like stay steady, because the housing market is such a huge driving factor for a local economy. Mm-hmm. And we always have that revolving door of, military people coming in here buying, and they got stationed somewhere else. Now they got to sell. And it's just a revolving door that stays constant and helps our economy grow. So I think that's something that we definitely have an advantage of here in Jacksonville, whereas, St. Augustine's a little bit more specialized. It's not the same type of dynamic down there. I guess let me ask you, like, development-wise, you're seeing St. Augustine change so much. We've talked about it many times before, and you chose to buy in West Augustine. Tell me why you kind of chose that area and what you foresee happening development-wise down there.
Yeah, I mean, West Augustine, it's more about affordability, right? And me and my wife, we want to build a real estate portfolio that eventually we can retire on, and not have to work every day, and make podcasts with our buddies every day. That's hardly work, right? But West Augustine, and in contrast to Jacksonville and St. Augustine, we don't have many neighborhoods, many towns. It's really downtown St. Augustine Beach is really where people hang out, right? In St. Johns County. And the problem is because we haven't had other cities and towns that were older where you needed to have a main street and you needed to have like a certain little marketplace for people to go to locally, because everyone just lives so close to the beach and surrounding downtown St. Augustine. Whereas Jacksonville, they're all over the place. So that's why I chose West Augustine, is because I could see it almost being like a Murray Hill, an Avondale, a San Marco, where it's a lot more developed, yes, but the walkability there to go around in the corner store and grab something to drink, something to eat. You want to go to a bar. Every third Wednesday they have a comedy show down there, so we go down every third Wednesday, and it's $10 you go to a comedy show. So it's a lot of cool, newer things coming to that area, which is why I see that coming up.
It's relatively centralized too, like right off of Phillips Highway. You go right into town right there. If you want to go down Phillips, you can hit up St. Augustine South. You're right there. It's really centralized, and it's such a good location that I'm surprised hasn't really developed. As of yet. I mean, now they are, but obviously,
now it's every street has new construction, and then also something that we're going to dive into here, which we can talk about, is the railway station that they're talking about proposing between St. Augustine and downtown Jacksonville.
Yeah, you know more about this than me, so tell people out there who haven't already heard about this situation going on, what that means for our two cities.
Yeah, so for St. Augustine, I think it's massive because in downtown St. Augustine, traffic and parking is always a big sticking issue. Now, if you're from any real major city, it's really not that bad. Of course, during Night of Lights, which is during December and January, it's terrible.
Yes.
And the traffic, the parking is awful. So what the city of St. Augustine wants to do is put a parking garage right at the corner of US 1 and King Street, where the Browdy's Liquor Mart is. The owner of Browdy's owns that whole parcel, and he proposed, hey, let's build this parking lot, but let's also build, let's have a railway going up to Jacksonville so that we can have some public transportation going on here that's not that expensive. Let's also add some multifamily development and commercial space right in that parcel. So for the train, I mean, I just think, because especially in West Augustine, a whole bunch of people riding around on their bikes. It's easier to get downtown on your bike than it is in a car, a lot of aspects.
Sure.
So if we can have public transportation where it opens up some jobs for some people down there, where they can head up to Jacksonville, work in the city, and they don't got to drive or do anything. One, that takes more cars off the road, and two, that also opens up some opportunities for people down here in St. Augustine. So what do you think on because I think
it's funny that you said that you said it opens up more opportunities for people in St. Augustine. When you said it's funny because when you were telling me about this development, this project, I immediately thought, wow, this is going to really benefit a lot of people that live in Jacksonville.
Yeah.
Because they're going to want to experience the cultural aspects that St. Augustine has to offer, and they don't have to drive 45 minutes on the highway on 95 or Phillips to get there. And not only that, maybe it does allow people to start working in St. Augustine. Maybe that develops more local business economies down in St. Augustine.
Yeah, and I mean, they're talking about putting, I believe there's going to be 4 stops in total, 1 in downtown Jacksonville, 1 in downtown St. Augustine, essentially, and then 2 in between. I believe it's going to be, could be wrong, so don't quote me on this, but I think it's going to be Racetrack Road and San Marco is where they're going to be putting that. And I think that's a great location for both of those, because one is a little bit more rural with Racetrack Road. San Marco is definitely a lot more developed, more city-like, I'd
Absolutely.
say. And that gives people the opportunity to, like, okay, well, if you don't want to drive to work, you can pull up to one of these parking garages, then you hop on the train, and then you go right in, you walk in. You don't got to worry about parking. You don't got to worry about your car being you got to worry about your car being at a secure parking lot. But, and then you can also, in a way, get a little bit of your time back.
I can also see a lot of people who live in Jacksonville now, who live and work in Jacksonville now, if that's built, I can see a lot of people, that might be, the boiling point for them to want to move down to St. Augustine, because they know they have that easy access into town for the commute, because, as we know, as an aggregate, St. Johns County's schools perform better on the state scale than Duval County schools. So that's a big driving factor for a lot of families who are looking to buy a first home or maybe a second home. They're starting their family. They need to expand.
For sure.
School is way more important. Their kids are in starting elementary school, starting middle school. These are things that they think about. These are reasons why some people move to places like Nocatee, places like Shearwater or Silverleaf or Rivertown, is because, it's a better place for them decision wise to them, right, in their perspective.
Yeah, and I mean, the problem that St. Johns County, St. Augustine's having right now is the affordability problem, because pricing has gone up so much, and people, biggest employer is public administration, right? The sheriff's office, one of them too. And then in general, it's the hospitality industry, right? But that's not one massive employer. It's a whole bunch of tiny little employers, right? So these guys are making good money if it was 2020, 2019, right? But now things have changed with inflation, the prices of homes, the prices of rentals in the area. So in a way, it almost allows that workforce to like, okay, well, this opens up an option. I can go up to Jacksonville and buy a place over there for $300,000, and I can
still work out of St. John's County.
And I can still make St. Augustine money in the service industry or the hospitality.
That's a great point. It really is a great point.
So that's a potential, but obviously people want to live close as they can to their job, right? So I think that's also a growing pain too that we're going to see here is as Jacksonville develops, it's becoming a bigger and bigger city. More companies are moving to Jacksonville, right?
Absolutely.
And it's becoming way more attractive than it ever was, right? And I think that's something that will keep driving people here. And with Jacksonville growing like that, we're seeing it and we're going through all of it. And we're like, oh man, we should have bought a house a couple years ago. Should have did this a couple years ago. And it's like, shoulda, coulda, woulda, we didn't do that. So what do you do now, right? And everyone's complaining about the traffic and the development. And it's overdeveloped. It's over this. It's like,
yeah, I hate that word, overdevelopment.
Yeah, it's really not comparatively.
It's natural, baby.
Yeah,
it's natural.
Natural, baby.
When you got a good place, people are gonna want to move there.
Yeah,
bring you more economy, bring you more business, bring you more residential access, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, I agree. Well, what do you? Because there's a lot of stuff going on in Jacksonville too. In terms of development in downtown Jacksonville.
Oh man, it's
which,
crazy.
To put it in perspective here, guys, the best restaurant on the Landing for years was a Hooters.
Yes, that's so true.
Yeah, which Hooters is great, man. It's
hey man, Hooters is still good. All right, I still stand some Hooters. We're getting a Twin Peaks right across, like a direct competitor of Hooters.
Yeah,
across the way from our house. So I'm like, I'll stop by to see how things are going.
Their food's good.
We go there for the food.
Yeah, come on.
You know exactly why we're going there. We're going for the food. The wings are awesome. But yeah, I mean, downtown Jacksonville, you're right. The Hooters down at the Landing for a long time was like the best place, and still to this day, downtown Jacksonville has it's almost like a running meme, right? Where Jacksonville's like this big city. And then you look at the skyline and you're like, what is going on there? We even went to Houston recently and the skyline there was like, we're like surprised. Whoa, this is significantly more developed than downtown Jacksonville.
Yeah.
We've always lagged behind Jacksonville as far as building a bustling downtown metro area. And, it is what it is. It's been like that for a long time, but there are new developments that are happening that could, hopefully, fingers crossed, spark some interest in downtown and get people from the suburbs moving more inward, or maybe even get people who are moving to Jacksonville from other areas, from other cities or states, to say, oh, actually, I think I'll live in downtown Jacksonville. We have they just announced that they're in phase 1 of the Four Seasons hotel, luxury hotel that they're building down there, right across from the stadium. They're redoing the stadium as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I just did a video on these things, and also, there's some developers are building like 3-story townhomes. You don't really see that in Jacksonville. It's not a thing,
and they're
right?
nice. They're very
nice.
Yeah.
They're nice, and
Modern.
they're affordable, right?
Yeah.
Affordable compared to what we would expect affordable to be in Jacksonville, right?
Yep. 100%.
And if you're out of state, that's probably even more affordable than what I'm describing, right? You're like, oh my gosh, that's a steal.
Yeah.
And then, when they build these projects, things like the Four Seasons Hotel, and people might hear this and like, what does a hotel got to do with anything about bringing in like a bustling downtown in Jackson? Well, it's not just the hotel. It's all the jobs that come with the hotel. They're building a hospital facility right around there. They're building commercial facilities right around there to facilitate. Because if you're an investor, you're building a hotel, you don't want the hotel to be in the middle of nowhere. You want things to be around there, right? And so they're making sure they're covering all their bases in that regards. And what that's going to do is it's going to revitalize, kind of like a lagging downtown that we've had for forever now. We've had Springfield kind of get gentrified a little bit within recent years, but it's kind of like a small pocket, but there's so much residential space and residential housing out in downtown Jacksonville that it's just waiting to be tapped into.
I think, and it's kind of similar to what I said earlier in the podcast. It's like I've lived in a city, and it's like if I'm going to live in a city, I want to live in a real city. I feel like people here need to almost learn how to live in a city and how to develop the city of downtown Jacksonville because we're such a car commuter place here, right? Like everyone hops in their car to go 20 minutes, like everywhere in Jacksonville. There's
like 3 cars parked in every driveway, right?
Yeah, exactly. So it's like with this development in downtown Jacksonville, and this also tied in with the railway, they said that it looks like everything's moving forward with that, but they interviewed a local person there, and he was like, yeah, well, I think so, but I don't know. He's like, I can tell all the commercial retail development in downtown Jacksonville is starting to go up like crazy. Like they're starting to build all over the place. He's like, because they're trying to prepare for that railway coming in.
Yeah.
That's what he said, at least, you know.
That makes total sense, though.
Yeah.
It really does. And what I think you're going to see is, you know, over the next decade as they build out these projects, I think the Four Seasons is, you know, it might be a little bit of aggressive of a goal, but they're planning on 2026 it's going to be done. The hotel, that's just the phase one part of the project. Like I said, there's other phases of the project, like they're building, you know, the boat yards out there, they're building the hospital out there, all the commercial real estate that's going to go paired with it. In the areas that are residential areas that have been neglected, and when I say neglected, I mean people don't really, they're very low key. No one really lives there that much. It's like no one talks about those neighborhoods, and no one really cares about moving there in mass. You're gonna see those places get eaten up. People are gonna start buying them because they can see the potential there of that area becoming, that Springfield little bubble is gonna start spreading outward and outward and outward until it encompasses pretty much all of downtown Jacksonville.
Yeah, I would say like a good case study of that is like, look at Murray Hill. Like Murray Hill, I feel like is similar to what you were saying. And like it's right next to Riverside, right next to 5 Points, which have already kind of blown up and are beautiful, beautiful neighborhoods. And Murray Hill is like one of those places where it's like, oh, I can see the appeal here. It's got this main street, it's got this cool little movie theater, it's got this, it's got that, and it's centrally located to everything that downtown Jacksonville has to offer, right? So I think amongst the city of Jacksonville, at least like the downtown of it, there's so much opportunity down there. And between the north and the south bank, they're just redeveloping all of that, and also adding green space too for like the parks and a trail to run out on the water.
Metro Park and all that. Yeah, absolutely.
And that's really cool stuff. That's what keeps people living in the area.
Absolutely. I mean, you lived in New York for a long time. You know, parks are, if you've ever visited New York City, if you're listening to this, you know, every couple blocks is another park. And it's really nice. It's really awesome. You know, when we went there, it was like that. So it was.
And you go in Central Park, you go in Prospect Park, and you don't even know you're in the city sometimes. You get lost in there, and you're like, holy shit, this place is humongous. And I think that's something that Jacksonville, St. Johns County definitely needs to add something like that, just because we rely so heavily on the beaches. It's like, this is our park, like go hang out here. And it's like, well, it's great, right? But let's get a little more going, But yeah.
That's true.
What else we got here, man? We covered a lot in a short bit of time. What we got?
It's already
40
been 30.
minutes? Yeah,
about 40 minutes. We did a lot there, man.
Yeah. Well,
anything else you want to talk about as far as St. Augustine, Jacksonville?
Well, let's maybe we do a rapid fire. Like, what's the thing you love about Jacksonville? What's the thing you dislike about Jacksonville or hate?
Okay, I'll go first.
Yeah.
Thing I love about Jacksonville. Dang, on the spot. Actually, you go first.
Gotta think about it. See, selling St. Johns County.
There you go.
I'm kind of a history nerd, so I love my wife's Puerto Rican. We go to Puerto Rico all the time. Downtown St. Augustine's an old Spanish town. It's got that cultural kind of feel, and it's really unique in terms of a downtown versus anywhere else in Florida, which is why I really like downtown St. Augustine. And then just to piggyback on that, like with the culture, the music scene. I mean, next month we're going to see the Black Keys and Mumford & Sons in downtown St. Augustine. I mean, that's awesome. And that's awesome. Not what was going on before 10 years ago in downtown St. Augustine. So that's amazing. In terms of the negatives of downtown, I guess because I'm such a realtor, all the people complaining about the development, I really can't stand when people are like the not in my backyard stuff. And it's like, hey, we need this affordable housing. We need these rentals, these apartment buildings, the condo buildings. And whenever it gets proposed in a wealthier neighborhood, they're like, meh.
That's so crazy that you mentioned that, because it's so true. A city can't be comprised of people who just make, a ton of money, like their salary. Not everyone can be a millionaire in a city, right? You have people, the workforce are regular, average, middle-class people too, and they need places to live. Yep. They need places to work, and you can't do that by sending them, outside of the city. They got to live there, They're working there, they got to live there too.
Well, and that's kind of where I'm saying, like, we're going through growing pains. Like, living in New York, I know people that commuted 2 hours one way to work, right? Gosh. And like, that sounds completely awful to us, because for us, normally it's like 20 minutes you're there, right? Yeah. And that's like at the longest point for the most part, right? So I think that's going to start changing here pretty drastically, to where people are going to have to open that up a little bit, and go like, okay, well, I'm 45 minutes to an hour away. That's good, and that'll keep expanding, Yeah. So, but yeah,
so I guess if we're circling back to me, the thing I love about Jacksonville the most is that we just have everything. We have the beach. We have the St. Johns River. We have the Intracoastal Waterway. We have the woods. If you want to go to the west side where I'm from, we got woods out there too, baby. You want to go mudding, you want to go fishing, we got it all. I mean, we have like Hannah Park. We have Huguenot Park. We have, Amelia Island's really close by. It's just, it's a great location in general, and we have everything here that we need. My biggest gripe about Jacksonville probably, I'm not super interested in the food scene here. I find myself liking, the cuisine and the food options down in St. Augustine more so than Jacksonville. And I think that's kind of curious because we have a significantly larger population than you guys, but maybe because of the tourism, you guys, the higher medium price point, you're attracting businesses that are really refined. The cooking down there, I don't know. No, not to say they don't exist in Jacksonville. Just I feel like per capita, it's probably a little bit better in St. Augustine.
Well, you're probably right in terms of like downtown, right? Because just for if you're an owner of a restaurant, your price per square foot in terms of what you're leasing, right? You gotta be able to afford that.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
And downtown St. Augustine is not cheap,
No.
So you got to be delivering a high quality product, and you got to be having people in the door, So it has to be good, or you're gonna fail. Period. Whereas maybe in Jacksonville, you have a lot more commercial space. It's not necessarily like not saying that people don't have. There's great food in Jacksonville. It's just so spread out. Whereas downtown St. Augustine's a little niche. Should we flip it?
That's another little gripe of mine. Jacksonville's a little bit too big at times, especially if you're driving around everywhere.
should we flip it? I know you said like the food scene in St. Augustine is probably your favorite thing, but like, what's your favorite thing about St. Augustine?
My favorite thing about St. Augustine is that it's so culturally interesting. You have that historic side. We have like a historic, riverside area. It's got nothing. I mean, St. Augustine is the oldest civilized city in the United States.
Yeah.
I mean, it's got so much history. The tourism speaks for itself, right?
Yeah.
And it's so interesting and culturally awesome in that regards, and I just love that look. I love that aesthetic, and we really don't have that here in Jacksonville, unfortunately. The worst thing that I guess my gripe with St. Augustine right now is probably like the traffic's a little wonky just because like they're, like you said, growing pains, right? They're figuring things out. There's people moving there and they're building roads and they're figuring things out how to better maximize the traffic system down there. But I feel like the traffic system, every time I go there, I get stuck on Phillips Highway forever. Or if not Phillips Highway, I'm on 95 because,
someone merged and got in a car accident.
So much traffic there. I feel like 295 is a little bit more streamlined, but we've been here for a lot longer, so we figured it out, right, after enough time.
Yeah, for sure. If I were to say my favorite thing about Jacksonville, that's a hard one.
He's got to think hard about it.
Yeah, no, you know what? I think Jack's Beach is such a cool area. Like Jack's Beach and Avondale. I mean, just such cute neighborhoods. Like where we were 100% considering. We were looking at houses up there, and it's like we were willing to make that drive, and that's where it really came down to. We drove up and back a couple of times, and we're like, nope, not doing it. But if we were the living in Jacksonville team, then that might be a different story because Avondale is just such a cute little city. So really I like the smaller pockets of neighborhood that kind of give you that more community feel, whereas St. Augustine has that feel, but it's just downtown St. Augustine, right? It's like everyone within that like 32080, 84, and 86, right? All those zip codes, you kind of know everyone in there.
And what's the worst thing, I guess, you think about St. Augustine?
The worst thing I think about St. Augustine? So about Jacksonville. Sorry.
Oh, Jacksonville, yeah.
So the worst thing I think about Jacksonville, there's not too many negatives, to be honest. It's a pretty cool spot.
I win.
Hey. Well, all right. Now let me come up with one. What's that? It's on 295. I'm missing the name of the bridge. To
James
Orange
Point.
Park.
Oh, the Buckman.
Buckman
man.
Bridge.
Hey, you're not alone there.
Jesus.
You're not alone there, buddy.
Oh my God.
I used to live back in Argyle or the Watermill Oakleaf area when I was a teenager, and going over the Buckman Bridge back and forth it's a nightmare, dude.
100%. Well,
a nightmare.
I drove. And then there's JTB with that freaking where the bumps where you just go. It's like you're in your car.
I love those. Those are great.
It's so fun.
You go over the bridge and that was fun.
But I lived in Orange Park with my sister for a little bit, and I was working in St. Augustine at the time, and I remember getting up in the morning and driving to St. Augustine. I can't remember why, but either way, like the worst positioning of a road in the sun, just hitting your face directly, and it's so bright here in Florida. Like if you're not used to it, if you don't have sunglasses, I was like literally crying. Like literally my eyes were watering, and I'm like looking away and you look away, you got the water over there, and then you look back, you got the sun, so it's all just reflecting off of each other.
Yeah.
And then you got the traffic on that bridge.
I'd have to agree with you wholeheartedly there. I think I'm a little insulated from it as of recent years because I live on a totally different side of town now. But yeah, Buckman Bridge, not a fun place to be, especially not during rush hour. But
no, for sure.
All right, well, I think we hit on a lot of good points here.
Yeah, for sure.
I think people can come to their own conclusions which city they'd rather partake in as far as living there.
I feel like they got some good banter here. You know,
Yeah,
we got some good stuff.
Yeah, Jacksonville's of course your default choice if you're watching this.
Yeah, so I mean, if you are looking to move to St. Augustine, let me know. You want to round this out because I started it.
All right, so let's go.
Yeah.
Well, that was the living in St. Augustine. I'm taking over for Thomas here. Thanks for watching, guys. Watch all of our other videos. Watch my videos too if you want to learn more about Jacksonville. But if you want to learn about St. Augustine, you gotta listen to Thomas here. He knows what he's talking about. He's been selling real estate here for a while now, and he's got his ear to ground. He knows all the stuff shaking down. And he knows the sheriff, and he knows the property appraiser.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't get more connected than that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure.
Until next time, guys, we'll catch you later.